The engine of my 18-wheeler idled as I parked in the driveway. It had taken me 8 long weeks to get home. My heart raced as I imagined Linda throwing open the front door to find me standing there with Emily and Jack right behind me. That was the vision that had kept me going through every mile of this trip from Texas to California. The porch light was off. There was no light coming from any of the windows. There was no car in the driveway. Even though the front door was locked, I had the key. My breath caught when the door opened. The living room was empty. The furniture was gone, as well as our TV. Everything had been stripped from the house. It had not been lived in for weeks. "Linda! Linda!" I shouted as I ran upstairs. My heart pounded in my chest. The children's rooms were empty. The beds were gone, along with the toys I got them for Christmas. My hands trembled as I dialed Linda's number for the 10th time that day. Again, her voicemail picked up. I spotted an envelope on the kitchen table with my name on it. Inside was a copy of the divorce papers. It stated Linda had filed for divorce 2 years ago. My eyes nearly jumped out of my head as I read the documents. It noted that I had signed the papers giving Linda full custody of the children, the house, and everything else we owned. My knees shook as I looked at that signature. This was not my signature. I never signed those papers. My name was scrawled at the bottom of the documents in a different slant than usual. I knew without a doubt that I did not sign those papers. I was driving across the country when they supposedly signed that divorce decree. I was in Nevada on the exact date the papers were signed. I had proof. I had receipts. My legs gave out as I sank to the floor. 10 years of marriage, and she just swept in and took everything. My children didn't even know I existed. She had told them I was gone and made me out to be the villain. That night I sat in that empty house with no plans to leave. If she thought she was going to steal my children and walk away with everything, then she had another thing coming. I made plans to fight her and take back everything that night. The next morning, I drove to my friend Mark's office. Mark and I had become friends in high school, and he was the only person I trusted. I shoved the divorce papers on his desk and told him everything. He read them carefully and turned pale. "Robert, it looks close to your signature almost, but it's not," he said. He picked up the paper and examined it. "Look at your R in Harris. When you sign your name, you always make a loop in that part." He pulled out an old contract and compared it to the divorce papers. I had looped the R in my real signature. The signature on the divorce papers made the R almost square. Mark leaned back in his chair. "If I am reading this correctly, we should be able to fight this because your signature is not on those papers. The judge will listen to us, but we need proof that you were out of state on that date." I pulled out my logbook from my bag. Every date from the trip was there. I had proof that I was delivering a truck in Nevada on that day. I handed him the documents and told him about the logs, receipts, and toll tickets to prove it. Mark grinned. "This is fantastic. We can file a motion with the court to overturn the divorce. Just be prepared, Robert. Linda has had 2 years of this, so she will not give it up easily." I didn't care. I was willing to fight for my children and my life. Over the next few weeks, Mark prepared the paperwork to fight the divorce motion, while I gathered evidence for the handwriting expert. I hired a new expert who had worked with Mark's firm in the past. Finally, I had to have one final confrontation with Linda. I needed to see my children. I drove to Emily's school one afternoon and waited until they let her out. She was 12 and she looked much older. I called out her name and she turned around, surprised to see me. Her face hardened in anger as soon as she saw me. "Stay away from me. Mom told me you left us. You didn't want us," Emily said. Those words cut deeper than anything. I tried to explain it all to her, but she ran off. My own daughter thought I was the villain. I spent the night crying in my truck. It hurt more than anything that Linda stole my children. The worst part was she stole their love for me. I vowed not to give up. I would find a way to fix this. I would do whatever it took to get them back. The day of the court hearing arrived, and I put on my nicest suit. I stood next to Mark as I tried to steady my nerves. Linda and her attorney were already there. She glanced at me and had no remorse in her eyes. She probably thought this was the end of me. She wore a black dress and put on her best performance of a grieving widow. The judge entered the room, and the hearing officially started. Linda's attorney began first. He argued that Linda had filed for divorce because I was selfish and irresponsible. I had made her take care of the children on her own. "You are a terrible father. You are nothing more than a selfish driver who only cares about the open road. You abandoned your wife and children," said Linda's attorney. Linda nodded along as if his words were true. She pretended to cry when he suggested, "I had no remorse for what I did." Mark's turn came next, and he led me to the stand. I took a deep breath and looked at the judge. "Your Honor, I never signed the divorce papers. I was across the country, in Nevada on that day. I have proof of this," I said. I gave the judge the log books and other evidence as Mark's attorney laid out our case. We finally brought in the handwriting expert to show the judge how the signature wasn't mine. He projected images on the screen so the judge could see the differences. Everyone in the room could see the evidence of forgery. Linda turned bright red with anger. "He's lying. He signed those papers," Linda shouted. The judge slammed his gavel. "Calm down, Mrs. Harris. Sit back down." Her attorney tried to talk, but there was no use. Mark pulled out the next piece of evidence. It was phone records showing Linda hired a handwriting expert 2 weeks before she filed for divorce. Linda's attorney's face fell as the judge looked at the evidence. "Mrs. Harris, you are being accused of forgery and fraud." "Mrs. Harris, these are very serious charges," said the judge. Linda started crying, but this time she knew she had crossed the line. I looked at her with no pity in my eyes. She had wrecked my life, and I was done letting her control everything. I turned to look at Emily and Jack. They sat in the back row, and Emily's eyes were wide with shock. Everything was becoming clear to her. It was all a setup. The next thing the judge said would change everything. The gavel came down with a hammering sound against the table. "It is ruled that the divorce is invalid. All assets taken from Mr. Harris must be returned to him. It is also ruled that Mr. Harris is granted full custody of Emily and Jack until further notice on the fraud committed against him," said the judge. Linda screamed and argued with the judge, but no one listened. The judge ordered her to pay all his legal fees and set a hearing for the fraud case. She was escorted out of the courtroom, screaming my name. I didn't look back. I had already forgiven her. After the hearing, Emily and Jack came to me. Emily was sobbing. Her little brother didn't understand everything that happened, but he knew something was wrong. Emily tightly hugged me. "I'm sorry, Dad. I believed everything Mom said. I didn't know the truth." I held my children close to me and cried with them. For 10 years, I had dreamed of this day. Now that everything was over, we could move on with our lives. I took them home that night. I hadn't lived in the house for several months, but everything seemed to stay the same. Emily was humming a familiar tune, and Jack was dancing around the house. The next day, I took Jack to learn how to ride a bike. I helped Emily with her homework, and we all ate dinner together as a family. The money didn't matter, but having my children back was priceless. Linda eventually served time in prison for the forged documents, and she was placed on probation. I didn't visit her, and I didn't write to her. I didn't want to hear her side of the story. I was done with her. This is a lesson I will never forget. Greed will destroy everything it touches. Linda had everything. She had an amazing husband, beautiful children, and a happy home. She wanted more, and in the end she lost everything. I don't drive across the country anymore. I took a local job so I could be at home every night with my children. Justice may have been delayed, but it was finally done.